Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Jenny. I'm from Jenny Card Designs. My YouTube channel contains content that is intended to share paper crafting tutorials and inspiration with all of you. I hope that you enjoy. In today's video, I'm going to be using a rainbow of Gina K Designs inks along with a Christmas stamp set. So this is a Gina K Designs stamp set designed by Beth Saleka called Holiday Trees. I'm going to use this stamp set to create a fun masculine card with it. So let's start creating this project. So I've got a bunch of Gina K Designs inks here and the stamp set along with an acrylic block and a Misti. We'll move everything out of the way and we're going to start stamping. Okay, so we'll get a piece of cardstock lined up into the Misti. This panel measures 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And then I've got one of the solid triangles from the stamp set and line it up into my paper. So I'll get the triangle stamp lined up in the bottom left-hand corner of this page. I'll use my magnet to hold everything into place. I'll pick up the stamp with the door of the Misti and stamp with my first color, which is going to be Wild Dandelion. So I'll ink up this stamp really good, turn the door of the Misti, and stamp the image. And then I'm going to, just eyeballing this, I'm going to move my cardstock down. I'm going to shift it in my Misti until about where I think the stamp will kind of sit on top, and I'm happy with that. And I'll go ahead and ink up the stamp and stamp it again. And now before I move this sheet of cardstock, I'm going to grab a little bit of washi tape. I'm going to create a little mark for myself so that I can line up this cardstock over and over again to create my pattern. So there's my little mark here with the washi tape. That's for step number 2. I'm going to move my cardstock down one more time and get that triangle lined up. And then when I'm happy with the placement, I'll take another piece of washi tape and create a little marker for myself. And then we'll go ahead and stamp this image a third time. I'm going to clean off my stamp and the door of my Misti, making sure everything is clean and dry. And I'll move my cardstock back up to the original starting point. We're going to follow those exact same 3 steps. So I'll turn the triangle upside down and line it up to where I think I want it to be. Secure my page into the corner of the Misti and put my magnet down. Pick up the stamp with the door of the Misti and ink up with my second color. This is Lucky Clover. And I just make sure that there's no ink on the door of my Misti. I'll get that cleaned up and then I'll stamp the image. And then I'm going to move my cardstock down to the first little washi tape marker. So making sure that it's pressed up against the side of the Misti and then lands right on that little washi tape marker. And then I'll ink up again and stamp my image. And then for the next step, we'll move the cardstock down to the next washi tape marker. I dropped my ink pad. Everything was safe. We made it out alive. I'll stamp it down again and then I'll get the stamp cleaned off, put my cardstock back in the top right hand corner and start all over again. So I'll ink up this stamp really good and stamp the image. Move my paper down to my first washi tape marker, ink up my stamp, stamp it, move my cardstock to my second washi tape marker, and away we go. So I'm just going to continue that with all of the colors that I've got lined out here for you. This one here is Tranquil Teal. The next color I use is Plum Punch. I use Faded Brick and Tangerine Twist. Here's a close-up look at the stamped pattern. And then I'm going to go back to the stamp set and grab one of the little outline triangles, and I'm going to use Obsidian Black Amalgam ink. And I'm just going to freehand stamp all of these using my comfort block. And I'll stamp my triangle just in the center of each triangle, just to create some interest. So I'll do that for all of my triangles. And when I'm happy with that, I'm going to take this to my paper trimmer and just clean it up a little bit. So I'll trim off the edges, get it lined up to the size that I want. And it's not perfect, but I mean, it doesn't have to be. It's a handmade card, and I had a lot of fun creating this. Here's our cleaned up panel. I decided to cut it one more time. I'm going to mount this on a card base, and I'm just going to separate the 2 pieces to give myself a place for my sentiment. So I pulled in a piece of craft cardstock that I've got I've got a 5x7 card base cut out of it, and I decided that I would like to mat these on some black cardstock to help those colors pop off. So I'll get those adhered down to my black panel, and then I'll get this glued to my card base, and then move on to the last step, which will be the sentiment. I've got another comfort block here and a scrap of black cardstock. I've got this scripty encouragement stamp set from Gina K, and I'll pick that up with my comfort block using the grid lines on it to make sure that the top word, I love you, is nice and straight. So this, oh sorry, I think it says I love your style. Okay, so I'll use my anti-static powder bag and I'll just tap that over my cardstock, being nice and generous with it to make sure that the embossing powder doesn't stick anywhere I don't want it to. And then I've got my Gina K Designs watermark ink. I'll ink up my stamp and I'll stamp it down, and then I'll cover it with some fine detail white embossing powder, and then I will heat set that until it's smooth and melted. And then I will trim up this piece to get it mounted on the center of my panel. I'll use a little bit of craft foam to pop up my sentiment. And then I think I'm happy with that. I had to resist the temptation to use some sparkly gems because I was aiming for more of a masculine card. I really, really wanted to put some sparkle on here, but I held back, which is, you know, if you're a card maker, then you know what I'm talking about. That temptation to jazz it up with sparkle is very strong. Anyway, so that's it for this card. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope that you can take a look at some of the stamps in your stash and see if you can repurpose them for more than what they were originally intended for. So this is definitely not a Christmas card of any sort. It's just a really fun geometric pattern, and I think it works well for masculine cards, which is sometimes tough for card makers because, I mean, how many floral stamps do we all have? Let's be honest. I have a lot of flowers, and sometimes it's hard for me to make a card for a man. I wish they loved flowers as much as I do. Anyways, thank you so much for stopping by and spending a little bit of your time with me here today. I appreciate all of the support, the likes, and the comments, and if you haven't had a chance, please subscribe to my channel. I'd love to have you along my card making journey. Thank you so much again. Have a lovely day, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye!